1, 2, 3.
Are you a corrupt politician? Or am I being redundant?
Well, she sneaks around the world, from Maryland to Carolina. She's a sticky finger culture, from Berlin down to Belize. She'll take you for a ride, with the most to China. Tell me where in the world is
Jan Sanders.
there's only South Korea, making on it, cause triumph come from the Red Sea to Greenland, will be singing the blues. I will be never Arkansas, still the beat come from a jungle. Tell me where in the world is
Jan Sanders.
she go from Nashville to Norway, but air to Zimbabwe, Chicago to Czechoslovakia and back. Well, she'll ransack Pakistan and Afghanistan and Scandinavia, then just stick 'em up down under and go big pocket burden. Missing misdemeanor when she stole the base from Lima. Tell me where in the world is
Jan Sanders.
tell me where in the world. Come on, tell me where can she be? Botswana to Thailand, Milan via Amsterdam, Bali to Bali, Ohio. Oh, whoa, ooh, the chain. Ooh, the chain. Monday through Friday at 5. She flies around the globe and jumping from every nation. She's a double-dealing diva with a taste for favoring. Her itinerary's loaded with moving violations. Tell me where in the world is
Jan Sanders.
tell me where in the world is where in the world is. Tell me where in the world is where can she be? Where in the world is
Jan Sanders.
watch your back.
Hi, welcome back to part 3 of this podathon, if you will, of remembrances of Burlington College and hellish times under the regime of one Jane O'Meara Sanders. I love that theme that we have for this, don't you?
Yep.
So, let's delve into stuff, but first things first, I'm named Taves.
And I'm Khoury.
Alrighty, and let's delve into a little bit of the stuff that happened prior to me showing up at the Burlington College.
Prior to you showing up at the Burlington College, okay, so, let's see, you showed up in autumn of
2006.
2006, okay, and I showed up the previous autumn, okay. Now that we got that clear.
Yes, what was your first encounter with Jane?
So I had come in to Burlington, arrived in the summer to just to get acclimated to the city and a number of other things, and I walked into Burlington College because I also was going into Burlington College and getting some stuff set up for the semester and whatnot. Anyhow, so I went into Burlington College, and I was I just met with somebody or something, and I was at the front desk talking to Brenda, and in comes Jane Sanders, and she comes up to me and said, "You must be KC."
And what did you say?
And I said, "Yes, I am."
And she said,
And she said, "I'm Jane. Jane Sanders, the president." And yeah,
and that was it.
yeah.
I had a similar first experience with her. Except in my case, it was, who are you?
And yeah, and so that was that. And then, like I mentioned to Nate, at the end of my first year, um, a couple people left. Uh, Kathleen Sullivan and Teresa the librarian. And then, like I was saying,
Oh, wait a minute. Teresa was there for the first year. I was there.
oh, she was?
Yeah.
Well, see, there's a space in between. But the point of the matter was, this is a space in between those leavings. And a space in between some other leavings.
Well, I mean, to be more time specific so that we have a chronological order of things, it was Jack, whatever his name is, there left at the same time as Kathleen Sullivan. And that was in the summer just before I would have gotten there, or the spring before I would have gotten there. Because I had just gotten accepted.
Yeah. Oh. The thing about Jack.
Yes.
This is also something that's yeah. So okay, so this is what happened. I first arrived there, and when I first arrived at Burlington College, the RA,
Who was who?
don't laugh, Jackie. Jackie was the RA. Now, this was summertime.
Wait a minute, I got one more. Okay, continue.
So anyhow, this was summertime, and Jackie was the RA, and another student living in that was in housing over the summer. Was Gina. So anyhow, I got to know Gina, and now at one point in the summer, Gina's nephew had come in around her birthday, and yeah, yeah, and so I mean, this was an interesting summer. I'll start with that, but that story there. I'll continue the story. So her nephew comes in, and so she goes into town, celebrate her birthday, and she happens to go in somewhere just for a brief moment that he's not allowed to go into. Being a 14-year-old and all that.
Oh, I think I've heard this story before.
So, what happens when Gina gets back? Or what happens after Jackie finds out about all this, I should say? Jackie, her brilliant wisdom and not really understanding that this is not her place, calls Gina's mother. So, Gina storms in to Burlington College, and basically, that's it for Jackie as RA, and in comes Jack.
And then Jack was there for a year, and then he decided to bow out.
Yeah.
And that was when Michael Watson was the director of student services.
Yeah.
And then when he left that position, but he was still a teacher at the school, it turned into, do you remember? Mike Oler.
Yeah.
Or Michael Oler. And now, I still remember I had a teacher, and I can't remember her name for the life of me. It's on paperwork, but I don't have the paperwork with me. Who I was saying to her, you need to have a meeting with Mike Oler, or to have him explain to you that I'm legally entitled to what I'm asking for, because what I'm asking for is a section of paper, and that's not anything that's unreasonable.
Right, right.
And this woman said, I need to talk to your older. Not quite, no. Anyways, I digress. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
So, Mike Oler was the director of student services. Now, during that year, you and I met,
Yeah, yeah.
and I also met Dylan Thomas Seals, Michael Shore, and I believe Mac Finley was the other one, right?
Yep, yeah.
And then it became. I had a cursory knowledge of Mary Vedham at that point as well, because Mary Vedham was hanging out with Josh Lambert somewhat, who was the RA that year.
Yeah.
And then you and I became friends, and Michael Shore and I became friends. Although oddly, the three of us never hung out. Anyway, so it was us three were friends, and that was it. And then this was kind of funny to me. Was the following year? This is 2007 to 2008. We're talking now. Mike Oler left, and Sarah Mel came in.
Yeah.
And Josh Lambert was the one that got Sarah Mel in for the job. Well, Josh Lambert had some issues with it and decided to bow out as RA and turned it over to the school. Well, the school then decided, well, we can't go without an RA, we need eyes on the campus. So they got Mary Vedham. And Mary Vedham didn't have to do much of anything until a few very noisy individuals got together and made a little bit too much noise late at night when she was like, hey, down with the volume.
Yeah, yeah.
Which just, makes sense. Common courtesy, and it keeps us within city ordinance laws and stuff.
Yeah. Not to mention, the hoopla.
Yeah. All that fun stuff.
That, the whole hoopla shindig.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot.
Too many people in Dylan's car putting his axe on the ground, causing sparks while we're coming over to Burlington College. I mean, seriously. If Burlington wasn't lax, no, we wouldn't have made it back.
Right. Well, I forgot. I also met Dylan Thomas Seals. Well, and Anthony Green.
Yeah.
The first year. Second year,
Anthony, I met him when he first started as well, and the reason I was laughing is because of when Anthony first started.
Mm-hmm.
And now keep in mind, Burlington College, and its brilliant wisdom, decides
right,
that
you're
they're going to take an apartment and they're going to take the living room part of that, and that's going to be an efficiency. The bedroom part of that is now going to be a second bedroom up the stairs from this apartment. I don't know how they can justify that, but
they did, yeah.
But they did. So Anthony was in that room. I was over here. I was over here. And now keep in mind, and so I was hearing noise over there from from Maria's area, and then I was hearing Anthony.
Downstairs.
No, Kevin was downstairs. Anthony was over there, and so I heard Anthony going at it. Um, this is after he hooked up with good Jane. Anyhow.
Yeah, Jane, in this case, being Snyder, her Barry's daughter.
Right, so I'm laying there and I'm hearing them, and I'm like, oh, hey.
You're going, ay, 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 ay. Yeah. Speaking of ay, so this was the year that you had the infamous.
So who's the first person you met?
First person I met? Michael Shore.
Really? Wow. That's because he was the first person I met when I rolled into town. So.
Well, I mean, as far as students go, and I met him when I was on the tour with Catherine Sullivan. And then it just happened that he happened to be there at the time that I was doing the other stuff. But that was also when he was lighter than he is now. He's gained weight since then.
Yeah, so he was the first student I met, and as well, and.
But then again, I was also lighter at that point than I am now too.
Anywho.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying that purely as a point of like, time changes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you one better. No, actually, I weighed more at that point. I went into college at 130 pounds and dropped to 90, where I stayed for a year and a half. And then I struggled to maintain a weight of 116, dropping back to 90 for the rest of the time that I was in college. And then I finally got it up to 116, and now I'm over that.
Yeah.
I'm still under that 130, which felt like shit.
And people are like, wait a minute, don't you usually gain weight your first year?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're forgetting one thing.
You didn't have James Sanders as president.
And also no dining hall.
Yeah, especially that. Well, that and the fact that there wasn't any meal plan of any kind. It was like, good luck to you, because we got 5 classes that you're going to. You can't miss anything. You have to do all the work, and if you miss anything, you have to do all that work plus the work that you missed. All the work that you get in the class that you show up for, all the work that you missed, and you have to have it in on time, and we're going to dock your points if you don't, even if you request an extension, because it costs too much money to give you an extension. I actually had that conversation. That's how I remember that spiel. And I'll do you one better. You're not allowed to, by law, Section 504 of the Americans with Disabilities Act, it says that you are not allowed to cite low finances as a reason for not giving extensions on papers or other reasonable requests.
Yeah.
I had low finances cited to me over 275 times over my course at Burlington College. So over the course of 4 years, over 275 times. No, you can't do that. Why not? It costs too much money.
Yeah.
What was I asking for? I was asking for extensions.
Yeah.
Ignore that drop. What was I asking for? What was I asking for? I was asking for extensions on stuff. I was asking for alternate assignments be considered in lieu of written work,
Yeah.
which I had written into my letters, which were bullshit anyway because nobody ever listened at them and took them seriously.
Yeah.
And mind you, I had all the blame was put on me in those letters. Nathan has to ask for this. Nothing will be given unless Nathan asks for it. Well, it should be given regardless of whether or not I ask for it, and then I can have it implemented as needed.
Yeah.
That should be the way that it's written. But no. Burlington College couldn't have it any legally correct way. They had to do it in such a way that they couldn't possibly be held to blame in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Even though they violated the law quite a few times, thank you very much. And I can prove it. And that's just their paperwork. Never mind what Jane did.
Yeah.
So then we get to the point of you and I became friends. Now, how do you remember that year going? Because this is the year prior to Janice's dismissal. Do you remember anything political atmosphere? What was it like as a school? Because it seemed to me that the tension was rising at that point.
Yeah, pretty much. I believe so.
Because it seemed like the first year I was there, I don't know about you, but the first year I was there, it felt like it was an even keel. Everything was kind of running as a smoothly operating machine. And then the second year, the political tension was on an incline. So that by the time we got to the summer of that year, you're heading into the fall, it was going up towards a peak. And then when we got to Janice Grill's firing in, or dismissal, whatever you want to call it, call a spade, she was gotten rid of. That was the peak of it. And it felt like it stayed up there for the rest of the time that I was there.
Yeah.
And I can't say that everybody else had that experience, but I know I was targeted. And I improved that I was targeted because who else had the cameras in the rooms and was vocal about it? Who else dared to ask the questions that nobody else would dare to ask of Jane? Who else was asking for accommodations that was being denied for stupid, inane reasons?
Yeah.
And that brings us into year number 3. I said I want to continue to study film, but I can't use a camera. And I can't continue in that way. I can do digital video, but I can't do a camera that requires film because there's too many steps for me to remember. It's hard with a disability. And they said, well, you need to drop film as your major then. And I said, wait a minute. What do you mean I need to drop film as my major? And they said, well, you're not allowed to do it if you can't do film. I said, look, I'm asking you for a simple adjustment. I'm not impugning on other people's class time. I'm not demanding special treatment. I'm asking for a simple technological change that doesn't affect anybody else. I'm not even going to be discussing with them what I want to do for films, unless I need another actor. And even then, the question shouldn't come up as to why is he using this instead of a film or another 16mm camera. And they said, well, no, you can't do that. I said, why not? They said, because it's not fair to other students. And that's where I said, well, you're right. I forgot. I asked for the disability so that I couldn't drive. I couldn't really get directions to or from any place. You can't read nonverbal communication. I suck at math and science and computers. But I would get a technological leg up on everybody in class.
Yeah.
They didn't get the humor. But that happened, and then they went on to ask so many questions that tried to probe me in a direction of, well, you're not allowed to take this, but you can change your major and create one. But it has to be one that we can tell you that you can do. You can't do one on your own like the history of comedy. It has to be something else. And you're not allowed to do digital video production, but you can call it that. You're not allowed to do it, but you can call it that. So there's some screwy logistical points where it was like, you're not allowed to do this, but you can call it this. That's perfect sense. Not. And this was around the point that, like, Munich came out, the HD film by the Spielberg and stuff. So that was that year.
Yeah.
So that was that point, and Jeff Wager just started that year as well. And he, well, Munich was 2007, so it was that year prior, but Jeff Wager just started that year, and I said to him, look, I want to use a digital camera and film too. And he was sitting directly across from me. Sarah Moore was sitting to my right. And Sarah Moore was supposed to be my advocate in the meeting. She didn't say a goddamn word. It was left up to me to ask this. So I was alone in that room asking for something, fighting for my education. And I said, I want to use a digital camera. He said, well, you can't do that. I said, why not? Who am I affecting? Who am I impacting? It doesn't cost the school any money. And it doesn't put you out of work any. And it's not taking any more or less time from you. I can still try to attempt to use film cameras in class. All I'm asking is to use a digital camera outside of the classroom setting where it's hard for me to do things otherwise.
Yeah.
And he said, well, okay, let me run that by Barry. I said, well, you should be able to say it yourself. And he said, well, look, I have no problem with you doing it, but I need to run it by my supervisor because I don't know what to say. And Barry said, well, no, you can't do that. And said that to me about it's not fair on the students. And that's where they decided that I needed to change my major. So I wound up battering them over that. Then I wound up battering Art Hessler because he was saying stupid, inane, and insensitive things to me. Like, we're not going to dumb down our curriculum for you. He said that to me. Can you believe that? Son of a bitch said to me, we're not going to dumb down our curriculum for you. Did I ask him to quote-unquote dumb down anything for me?
No.
Did I ask him to alter anything for anybody else for me?
No.
Did I ask him for anything that would cost him an excessive amount of money as a school or him individually?
No.
Did I fail to see why he would have an objection to somebody using a digital camera in a film production class, don't you?
Yeah.
And even then, I never said I want to be exempt from using this camera. I just said, as far as homework's concerned, I want to be able to use a digital video camera. In class, I'll still be happy to try to do it, but I know that I suck at it, so don't expect too much from me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not asking you to be treated much differently, just a slight tweak. But no, they couldn't do that. So I spent the next 2 years fighting. That was literally from 2007 to 2010 I spent fighting.
Yeah.
And in 2009, after we had that first successful year of Burlington College Presents and we had the LD show, again, I came back, and you can jump in at any point with anything that you may remember on this stuff, but I came back and we were doing the stuff, and the atmosphere was incredibly tense.
Yeah.
We literally got to the point where we had to be doing, and I'm going to do this visually for you, and I'm going to have to narrate it because this is a podcast. We had to be looking over our shoulders right and left in fear to see who was coming, because we couldn't trust students. We couldn't trust teachers because everybody was the enemy. These were people that would rat you out quicker than you could say Fort Ticonderoga. Why? Why for students? Because of money. They were paying off students by getting them jobs, by giving them modeling contracts, by displaying their films at an international film festival. By doing that stuff, they were paying off the students to turn and rat out the next person over from them that may say something anti-establishment. And that was the reason, you'll recall, that Burlington College Presents was shut down. Though not officially given, that was the reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I mean, and crazy bitch. But anyhow, no, I say that because guidelines are there for a reason. Okay, and Jane said she said point blank. I said, well, there are guidelines put out there by the, by NEASC, by the United States Department of Education, by the Vermont Department of Education, and she said point blank, those are just suggestions.
Yeah.
Now she's paying off these students, which I'm pretty sure, sanctions could come against her. I mean, granted, there's no athletics there, so, there's no NCAA sanctions, but still there's NEASC sanctions.
Right. Right. Well, that, and there's the ethics committees and stuff that could go after her as well. But paying off students, encouraging people to rat out their neighbors, for simply asking for what is considered legally, when the system is working, to be okay.
Yeah.
Which gets into something else that I should add, is at this time I was taking a law course called Law and Disability Law in Higher Education. And in this course, I was learning a lot about the how stuff worked.
Yeah.
And while I was learning that stuff, one of the things that came out of it was a certain amount of uh, uh, information about the disabilities being violated at the college level in similar situations. And I said, I think I need to talk to a civil rights lawyer, to my parents. And my parents said, well, we can't afford to talk to a civil rights lawyer because that's thousands upon thousands of dollars. And my dad, rather stupidly,
Yeah.
told me that I could find a lawyer that would work pro bono, a civil rights lawyer that would work pro bono. Let me tell you here and now, there's no such thing. So nobody go looking for a civil rights lawyer that will work pro bono. There is no such thing. There may be certain amounts of lawyers that allegedly do pro bono work, but none of them are civil rights lawyers. Let's be perfectly clear about that. So I wound up having to look for that stuff. And while I was looking, I came across an article that said, if your civil rights are violated, contact the Office for Civil Rights. And there's 2 chapters. There's one in Washington, D.C., and there's one in Boston, Massachusetts that you can contact. So my mom called the one in Washington, D.C. and said, look, I'm doing some investigative work for my son, and he's having these kind of problems up at his college in Burlington, Vermont. And the woman spent an hour and a half with her on the phone. An hour and a half. And listened to the problems I was having and the nasty things that Art Hessler was saying to me, like, you know, we're not going to dump down our curriculum for you, and stuff like that. And, technically by law, we don't have to do any of this stuff. And she just was the whole time, holy hell, how in the hell can they be doing this stuff? This is somebody who's in charge of implementing the law, and she's working in D.C., probably the worst place for hot air bullshit. And she's saying that this is even worse than the bullshit that's flying around Washington. That's pretty bad. Now, she goes on to say that we should contact the Boston chapter of the Office for Civil Rights. So we did. We contacted the Boston office. And they said, well, fill out the form and we'll contact you. Because we're not going to talk to you before that. So, okay. So we filled out a form, and they said, list your complaints. And I said, and they gave literally like a paragraph's worth of space. I said, there's not enough room to see attached on the form. And I documented everything for a good 3 months of that year. Going back as far as I could because they said everything that's relevant. And so I gave everything that was relevant in detail. Beating my brains out to do it. And I listed everything up until about February of that year. And this is February 2010, just so everybody's clear. And so I went and I sent this off. And from February until May, I fought the Office for Civil Rights, as well as Burlington College, as well as my dad, about the laws pertaining to the situation. Because my dad at the time, they were trying to get me kicked out of housing the year before, and he was going, "What's the big deal? Sign a piece of paper, it's not going to be anything." Well, guess who turned out to be right on that one? Me. I turned out to be right. Don't sign the paper, it's going to fuck you over. Guess who turned out to be right? Me. You know, and I can't hold that against him because he's ignorant. He didn't know. He wasn't educated. Oh, that was something else. Glad I reminded myself. Office for Civil Rights, right? You have to give a reason why you didn't file before you filed. You know what I gave? I didn't know you guys existed. Had I known, I would have filed sooner. Perfectly legit reason, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know something's in existence, how are you gonna file? You know what they said to me? That's not a good reason. That's not a good reason for you not to file. Really, I think it's a great reason. And I said to them, really? Well, you know, how is that not a good reason? If I had known, I would have filed sooner. I said, well, that's no excuse for not knowing. I said, look, I'm sorry I didn't have a chip implanted in my brain when I was a fetus that told me if you ever have your civil rights violated, you go to the Office for Civil Rights, okay? They failed to see the humor in that. But they did say, you know, that's no excuse. And I said, I think it's a perfectly good excuse. And they said, well, it's not. So that's not a good excuse. You're not really eligible. But since you're here, let's hear the rest of these charges. So I'm getting verbally abused by the school that I'm paying to go to. And I'm being verbally abused by the people that are supposed to enforce my civil rights and protect them. Now, on top of that, I also find out through this process that people can counter-file against the person that filed against them for filing against them. And then you would be investigated by the people who would be filing against you for filing against them.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that kind of a way of promoting retaliation? They say retaliation's against the law, but then they give a legalized version of retaliation. The system's broken, people. I'm going to allow myself one F word in this and tell you who the Office for Civil Rights and tell you the former president of Burlington College, Jane Sanders, fuck you, the system is broken. That does not excuse what Jane did, that does not excuse what Sarah Mel did, which was uphold Jane's orders, despite knowing that they were wrong. That does not excuse Barry Snyder or anybody else from what they did.
Right.
What they did was wrong. But I say this, the system is broken. I found that out firsthand. I cannot recommend in good conscience to anybody to go and file with the Office for Civil Rights. The system is broken. Your civil rights are bullshit. They're not going to be protected. They're not going to be upheld. So you know what? It's you against the world. I hate to say it, but that's what it is. You against the world. I found that out firsthand, so the sooner you find that out, the better. I'm saying right now stuff that I could probably get killed by the government for saying, and I could probably get killed by the former teachers that I had, and the head of the high school I went to. because he doesn't want it leaked out that this is the truth. People don't give a flying you know what about you. People don't care. People are jerks. The Office for Civil Rights does not enforce anything other than promoting legalized retaliation. Now, all that said, what I found out at the end of a very painful and insulting process with the Office of Civil Rights, and the same painful and insulting process with the college, in addition to what I just said, is the Office for Civil Rights gave me an ultimatum. They said, you either let us leak your name or we're dropping your case. I said, I can't let you leak my name, because then that promotes legalized retaliation, even though retaliation is supposed to be against the law. So I can't in good conscience do that. I'm in enough shit as it is. I'm gonna peace out on this one. So I said, goodbye. Can't do this. And they said, are you sure you want to leave this one? Because we feel that you have a case. Well, you put that hell of a time to tell me, now didn't you? Instead of having been verbally abusive to me from February until April, don't you think you could have told me that I had a case? Don't you think you could have told me that you could have been able to help me? Instead of being degrading and abusive and telling me that I didn't have anything and that my complaints didn't amount to a hell of shit? So, again, system broken, folks. Doesn't excuse the behaviors when it happens, but it happened. Now, that said, during the time that we were doing the filming, do you remember the story I told you about what happened with the camera equipment? Because I had to ask you to take out camera equipment a couple of times for the shoots.
Oh yeah,
Do you remember the story well enough to tell it again? Because I know I'm doing a lot of venting here. Not so much?
No.
Okay, well, basically it was, and this is a very short story, but I had gone to take out equipment, and Jeff Wager said to me, hey, what class is this for? I said, it's for this law class that I'm taking. I need to complete this movie that I'm working on. And Jeff said, we can't technically allow you to take out this equipment. And I said, why not? I'm enrolled in a class. And he said, yeah, but it has to be a film class. And I said, look, I'm tired, I've been up all night writing, and I'm taking, any equipment that I can get, preferably the good stuff, but I'm not taking it out for longer than I need it. I bring it back on time, all the equipment on time, in pristine condition, recharge batteries and everything. Why are you doing this? I'm bringing back the equipment in as good, if not better than condition that I'm getting it. Why are you giving me shit about it? And said, well, I have to clear this with Barry. I said, I'll do you one better. Go clear it with Art, because I've got his permission to go take out this equipment. And he goes, no, that's fine, you can have it. But the reason why I had to ask you to take out equipment, you'll remember, is that I couldn't run the risk of taking out equipment too many times. and sometimes we needed a better camera than what they would give me, because they would literally give me bottom of the line cameras sometimes. You remember? Remember that?
Yeah.
So we wound up having to take out equipment a couple of times under your name, and then I had to do my stuff mostly on the weekends when other people were doing their stuff, because we couldn't film much during the week. And the couple of times we did film during the week, it was hellish because it was late night shoots and stuff. Remember that?
Yeah.
So that was the extent of the shooting atmosphere for that movie. And we finally got through it. Thank God we all passed all our courses and got the hell out of there when we did. Because I don't think I could have stomached another year at that place.
Yeah.
I mean, that rolling at a pace of trying to take all the courses that you do and stuff. Now, all that said, I have one more story about Jane, and this is the be-all end-all meeting that I've been threatening to talk about for a while. So here it is, the long-anticipated story, and it's not as great as it's built up to be, but here it is in its entirety. I spent 2 months trying to arrange a meeting with Jane Sanders, and I ran into her underling, who was her assistant, the one that replaced Joanne. Because remember, Joanne had to go on that leave of absence because of the pregnancy and stuff, and then I think it was resigned or something. But anyway, she had left, and she had was working in admissions or something like that. But the replacement was an Asian woman who barely speaks English, and she'd go, "Yeah, Dr. Sander, yeah, you want to talk to Dr. Sander?" "Yes, I would like to talk to the doctor. Is the doctor in?" "No, so sorry, not yet." "Okay, look, I want to schedule an appointment." "Oh, appointment? What time?" "Well, I don't know. What does she have available?" "Oh, she's not available for a great deal of time. She's in Washington." "Look, I don't want to know her travel schedule. I just want to know when she's available." Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So finally I get an appointment scheduled. And I was given like 2 days notice for it. So I finally show up, and my stomach's in knots. I'm tight as tight can be. You remember you saw me that day. I was shaking, wasn't I?
Yeah.
I was shaking visibly, and I was having to try to hold that just at like barely below the surface. And I still have the hand tremors right now that I was feeling at that point. Of course, part of that could also be cold, but that's another story. But I was there, and I got up to Jane's office. I went from the editing room because I had to import some footage that morning, which you helped me with. And then I went up to Jane's office, and I said, is Jane in? No, she's not around. She's finishing up a meeting. Did you have an appointment? Yeah, I had an appointment. Well, 45 minutes later, I finally get in to see Jane. So first off, she's not running on time, and people are being evasive and stuff, but then I finally get in to see her. And she decides to, try that fake sweetness stuff of, "Oh, so nice to see you again. I'm sorry I don't get out too much anymore. I'm bogged down with administrative stuff," and all that rigmarole. And I was, doing that fake sweet thing back because he never bullshitter, But where I lost it was, I said to her, look, eh, I'm looking to try to set up a meeting, and I want to invite you to it. And it's to discuss some legal issues that have been going on at this college for quite some time. I'm no legal expert, but there are some serious civil rights violations that are going on that I think need to be addressed. And she said, well, you know what, Nathan? I don't think you understand what it takes to run a college. I waited just the beats that you just heard, and I said to her, I don't think you do either. And she waited the same amount of beats with a look on her face that can only be described by telling you to stop listening to me right now. Go get yourself a copy of Hannibal the movie, directed by Ridley Scott from 2001. Cue up a scene in where Anthony Hopkins is looking, and you can just hit the fast forward button until you see it, or I'll do you one better. 2003's Red Dragon. Go see Red Dragon. There's a scene in it where Anthony Hopkins again, is standing behind a plastic glass wall, and he's talking to Edward Norton on the other side, and Edward Norton says to him, I captured you because, this is paraphrasing. He said, you captured me, well, how did you get me? And Edward Norton goes, well, you had certain disadvantages. And Anthony Hopkins goes, well, what disadvantages? And Edward Norton goes, you're insane. And smiles. And Anthony Hopkins cocks his head to the right side, looks down to the right, gets a little bit of a bemused look on his face, and does a half nod / shrug to the right side, like, I can't really dispute that. And that look, if you freeze frame it, when he's got that look on just after cocking his head slightly, that's the look that Jane had on her face when I said that. And she held it for a good long beat. And then she decided to start trying to bullshit me about events that had happened while I was at the college. Like, oh, well, I went to bat for you on using a digital camera in Film 2 class. I said, no, you didn't. You went to bat on getting the use of a digital camera in Film 1. What I asked for after that was using a digital camera in Film 2. And she said, well, that's significantly altering our plan. I said, how? I'm still using a film camera in class. I'm not altering somebody else's work. Well, it costs too much money. According to my readings in a law class that I'm in right now, Gene, you shouldn't be saying that. I'm no lawyer, but I'd say you just violated the civil rights laws again. And that's where she lost it, and she kicked me out of her office. In a kind of a dismissive way. And as she was closing the door on me after I told her that I wasn't going to be attending the graduation party because the graduation is a big show, and I'm not about ready to sit there and smile after all the shit that I've been through. And she has the gall to say to me, take a wild guess, good riddance. She said to me, good riddance. And I literally, the last person I remember seeing that day, and I wish I could see her again afterwards so I could say, you know what, it's not your fault, but you worked for a tyrant. It is Sally. Mind you. Remember her?
Mhm.
She was the last one I saw. Sweet, and I wouldn't say necessarily innocent, but in this case she was. Sweet, nice lady. Wound up hearing the last words I had to say about Jane Sanders in that building. Aside from what I was telling Rosie and Sandy about that particular meeting. And that was only in a school this fucked up would somebody violate civil rights laws and then tell the person who they violated for 4 years to go drop dead. It's sick and it's sad, but it's true. All those things they just heard happened. This is the most condensed form of this story that I can possibly come up with. I have planned and planned and planned, rewrote and rewrote for years. And I said I'm not going to do it until I know that I'm safe from retribution. I'm still not sure as I'm safe from retribution, but I'm closer to safe than I would have been if Jane was still president of the college. That's why I chose to do it now. Now the only person that I have to worry about going after me from the college that I've named is Art Hessler. And him I would like to see removed before I even deem working at the college again in any favorable light. Would you concur at all with any of that, or do you have anything to add to any of that?
That sounds right.
And how about your experiences, just quickly over here? Yeah, throw you for a loop there, did I?
My experience.
Take your time.
My experiences.
Forgot how to use your voice, did you?
No. Okay, so my experiences, well,
Well, here, let me ask you some direct questions. Maybe that'll help. How would they compare, on a scale of intensity, 1 to 10, 1 being the least intense and 10 being as intense as what I was just talking about? From your perspective, of course.
My perspective.
And this is just political, like Jane Sanders and administrative stuff, not necessarily the students. So.
Yeah. So Jane and the administrative. I mean, yeah, I mean,
On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say? 10 being as bad, 1 being nowhere near as bad. If you just had to place a numerical on it.
About, I would say, 6 or 7.
Okay, so pretty close. How about, or midway anyway. How about, with students between the writing out of people and stuff that we ran into during the Burlington College Presents Season 2, the ill-fated season, and the shooting of Lucid Control. Same numerical scale, what would you say?
About a 7 or 8.
Okay, so you're pretty close again on that one. Okay. How about this is more of a answer with the words question, but I've been asked this question several times and I'll give the answer to it. I was asked if I had to do the whole thing over again, would I? And knowing what I know now, I'd probably say no. Overall, but do I totally regret going to Burlington College? No, how can I? I met some very interesting and fascinating people that I'm still in contact with. And I still follow certain adventures of certain people, though I'm not in direct contact with them now.
Yeah.
And of course, not in a creepy way. But, well, I'm saying that in case somebody hears this and goes, I wonder if he's following me.
Yeah.
But it's with a marked interest in how well is this person doing, because they seem like a person that should do very well with stuff. Like, as I said before, Mary Vidham.
Yeah.
Fantastically talented person. I hope to God she gets over her fear of sitting in public, because she sings fantastic. Like, she sounds like Alanis Morissette and Judy Garland in one. Which, if you ask me, you cannot ask for a better vocalist than that. But anyway, she sings well, she paints well. Well, she draws pretty well from what I've seen. And her poetry is great. How do you go wrong? Multi-talented, very intelligent woman.
Yeah.
So, it's people like that I follow. The adventures of online, like, what are they posting, what are their latest pictures if they have them, things like that. And it's not like I can remember any of it off the top of my head, per se, but it's like I have a cursory knowledge of stuff. So, I'm not that creepy, but, pretty sure. But anyway, I guess my question out of that to you is, if you had to do it all over again, then would you, and why or why not?
If I had to do it all over again, I mean, there's certain aspects. I mean, I would do it all over again. I mean, maybe not exactly what I did. Maybe in a different course of studies or whatever. But and a few other things. Obviously, I wouldn't want to repeat.
But outside of that, would you?
Outside of that, yeah, I would.
Okay, and then why or why not? So in this case, why?
because even though there was because there was a lot there, because of the good things, you know, sure there are bad things, and there are things that were outright ugly, without getting into a good bad ugly segment, but uh, you know, there was definitely a lot of good things.
I can't argue that about the good things, because there were certainly a lot of good things to come out of it, but doesn't mean that everything was easy necessarily.
No.
And I guess just quickly I should add a PS story, and then we'll peace out on this series. What do you say?
Sure.
Okay. Well, this PS story is very simple. I went to college at Burlington College. I had my civil rights violated, as you just heard, in all the ways that you've heard over the course of the podcast thus far. And then at the end of it, I had my civil rights violated again by somebody that you can hear on one of these podcasts. So, when I say I had my civil rights violated by this person said to me things like, well, it depends on what you did as to whether or not you actually had your civil rights violated. And this person accused me of lying to them when I hadn't lied to them at all. This person told me that I needed to start wanting to do things in bigger groups with this person and several of their friends. Otherwise, I could take a hike. So this person gave me an ultimatum. And I'm not saying any of this to be malicious, because this person and I have moved on from this point, and I wouldn't say I've done the forgive and forget mentality of it, but I've done the I'm going to give you a second shot, and if you go anywhere near this stuff again, I'm going to call you out on it thing. But yeah, there were also some outrageous statements made that I won't get into, because that's a podcast worth in and of itself. But this person said all this stuff to me, and the point that I feel like I need to make with this is that it doesn't matter if it's an organization doing it or if it's one person doing it. This stuff hurts. It shouldn't happen at all. And I'm not going to split hairs as to who was worse and stuff, because in all technicality, as bad as it was to get hurt continuously by an organization that I was paying to try to get a good education from, it hurts even more when a friend does it. So, with that said, that's been moving violations. Hopefully, if we haven't been exactly amusing all the time with this, we've been at least somewhat enlightening as to what we've been through, or what I've been through since I just did the monologue podcast. And my apologies to anybody that this may or may not offend. But but take it as a historical document that these are things that I have to live with on a daily basis, that
Yeah.
I have to try to remember, uh, so that I don't fall for the same kind of behaviors and stuff, and listen to the same kind of bullshit that I'm continually fed on a daily basis, even after I've graduated college with an associate's degree.
Yeah. And, I mean, that was my only time. I mean, I don't want to say only. When I say only, I don't mean that. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I started Burlington College and I went to graduation.
Right.
As opposed to somebody that I know, Nate knows,
Right.
who was at Burlington College at one point, left Burlington College.
Yep.
Came back to Burlington College.
Yep.
After being at another school.
Yep. It's
And,
not Mike Emerald, is it?
Yeah. Wonder what he would, how he would compare and contrast the two different times of Burlington College, but
Well, having talked to him about that, I'd say we could probably fill a whole another podcast with that. But he said that times were vastly different and nowhere near as bad, politically speaking, as they were under Jane Sanders. And I don't think you're going to find anybody that survived that administration to go on and graduate that will argue that point. What we lived through shouldn't have happened to a dog, but those cruelty to animal ads run daily on TV. Why aren't there cruelty to people ads run next to them?
yeah.
Ponder that, and if you can come up with a good answer, let me know. And that said, that's been moving violations. I'm Nate Taves.
I'm Casey Khoury.
Take it easy, and thanks for listening.
Can't believe someone said that's bunk or whatever.
Monday through Friday at 5. She flies around the globe and she'll win from every nation. She's a double-dealing diva with a taste for favoring. Her itinerary's loaded with moving violations. Tell me where in the world is
Jane Sanders.
Tell me where in the world is where in the world is Tell me where in the world everywhere Jane should be Where in the world
Jane Sanders.
Watch your back!
Are you a corrupt politician? Or am I being redundant?